Welcome back to another episode of Mystery Garage. It is a Wednesday episode, and every single Wednesday we get to work on Project Stepchild here. So it's time to get back to work on this. Last episode we hung all the body panels, hung the doors, hung the fenders, laid on the hood, made sure we were happy with everything. There's still some work to do on those items. So in today's episode we'll get to work. Let's do it. Again, welcome back to Mystery Garage, and today's episode, getting back to work on Project Stepchild. So like I said, last week's episode, we got into putting the doors on, fenders on, hood on, all that sort of stuff, checking the initial fitment of all the panel gaps, as you can see here. I'm pretty happy with all the panel gaps for the most part. This side of the hood, other side of the hood is virtually exactly the same. Pretty happy with that. Up here, fitment in the cowl section is really good. It's pretty level. The lining and the gapping is great. Do run into a little bit of problem on this door. So you can see this part of the door, panel gapping is all fantastic, all the way down through the door. Where I start to run into some problems here is down here where I cut this part out and re-trimmed it. I'm worried that I think I ground back too far this way on the door and ended up creating a gap, because the rest of the door's gapping is really good, but it gets a lot bigger in this particular portion right here. So I need to fix that. I need to tuck in this fender a bit. It's got some goop that's sticking out, so that needs to be fixed up a bit first, and then we'll tuck the fender in and we'll get to work on showing you how I can shorten up this gap or shore up the gap so it's not quite so big. Other things we're going to tackle today is unfortunately in North America, we were blessed with side markers. So you can see right there's a side marker. In the back, there's a side marker. All four corners of the car, we got side markers. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna fill those in. I could buy aftermarket fenders and put them on, which don't have these, the European versions, but I prefer the fit and finish and thickness of the OEM ones. So I'm actually just gonna fill those in and show you how I do that. We're gonna have to do the same in the rear as well. This is it's a North American thing. While they, all things considered, don't look terrible, in North America they require, both in the US and Canada, require lights on the side of your vehicles. So it's where in Europe that wasn't the case. All of our lights on Mark 1s are directional. They face either the front or the back. So when you imported, or when Volkswagen imported these cars, they needed to add these reflectors to the side, or lights I should say, so that way from the side angle there's lights lit on the car. If you look at every other car, they all have that in North America, lights that you can see from the side. If not a separate marker, they have it where the tail light wraps around, sorry, out of camera there, where the tail light wraps around enough that you can actually see a marker on the side. Also, believe it or not, that's the reason why they created the Westy front end. It's not the entire reason, but it's a good part of the reason. When they started manufacturing these cars in North America at the Westmoreland factory, they changed the Westy front end to account for that side marker. So that's why the square headlights turn into a marker that's, or I should say the turn signal turns into a marker on the side of the car. That's exactly why, because when they started manufacturing these cars here for sale in the US and Canadian market, it was a quick and easy way for them to, it's obviously not the only reason why they did it, but it's part of the reason to meet the requirements to be driven on the street of the United States and Canada, was to have that side marker. So that's part of the reason why they created that Westy front end. And for a lot of people, we want to get back, at least in North America, we want to get back to the Euro look. And that's my target car, as you guys all know. It's a European version and doesn't have any markers on the side, and it looks really clean. I still really do like the Westy front end. Obviously I prefer this because, all of my dream cars I've ever seen that I really fell in love with was a round headlight setup, mostly because these cars are found in Europe and that sort of thing, or the ones I see. But for us in North America, we had that Westie, which was carried for, now correct me if I'm wrong, about 4 years, 3 or 4 years. So 81, 82, 83, 84 is where we had that Westie cutout signal until they stopped producing the Mk1 chassis in North America, or for us, and they started to do obviously into the Mk2s. Before we get started on that, the BC weather up in British Columbia here seems to change every half an hour, especially in the spring when we're switching over to better weather in the summer. It rains every half hour, or it's windy, or it's sunny, and it's honestly constantly changing. But right now it's super windy, so unfortunately I may have to close the door. I don't like closing the garage door just because it creates a bit of an echo effect in my sound quality, but it is just so windy outside right now. It's probably going to negatively affect the camera and the sound as well, so I may look at closing the door. Also, in the background of today's episode, you're probably going to see this. If you watched my recently released Sunday episode, I very quickly introduced this car. We're going to talk about that more on the Sunday coming up. But for now, don't get too lost in this in the background. We're focusing on this today. It is a Wednesday episode, and that's all about Project Stepchild. So, without further ado, let's start working a little bit on this before I go taking the fenders off and filling the holes. Let's try and trim in that gap that I talked about. We're going to bring this one in a hair to tighten this gap up. Okay, now before we get into it, quick conversation about panel gapping. Panel gapping to me, means a decent amount. It means that you took the time to go through the car to make sure everything, the fit and finish of everything was great. Now, I'm not going to get into a very in-depth episode on panel gaps as far as like how to do it if you're doing, concourse restorations. Again, that's not the purpose of this car, but panel gaps matter when you're talking about, building a car, just because you want not only panel gaps to be seamless from one end of the panel to the other, you want the whole car to be on the same page. You want all the panel gaps to be roughly the same, so that way the fit and finish and the look of the car is in my opinion, seamless. So what I do, again, many methods to get this done. I'm just going to explain my method. Is I get a stack of playing cards. These are the ones I use for painting. But what I do is I stack them together and I tape them. When you hold them together, they create a thickness. And then, so what ends up happening is I use this as almost like a feeler gauge. You can actually buy panel gapping gauges, but for me, this works just great. So let's go around the car real quick and I'll show you what I mean. So when you walk around to the car, you want to, take this feeler gauge, or lack thereof, and check these gaps. Now this gap I haven't touched yet. This is original to the car, and I'm pretty happy with it. When you stick this in, you should have a bit of resistance on both sides. It shouldn't be super loose to kind of establish your panel gap. Now if you go around to each other area on the car, same thing. You want to be able to stick it in, make sure you touch on both sides, and there's not an extreme amount of improper fitment. And you can kind of go up and down the door seams and make sure everything fits real nice. And again, same thing. Front side of the door, panel gap, same deal. It fits real nice. It fits in here just the same. Same thing with the hood fitment. You can go down the hood fitment. As you guys can see, hood fitment all the way down the car, same gap. This side, same thing. Right? So you're testing all of the doors. Now, how I know this door isn't proper to what I want for fit and finish is because right here, panel gap works, and then it starts getting really, down here, it's really big and sloppy, but as you come up the door, you can see it starts to tighten. I can't, unfortunately, show you the gapping there, but we can show you here. That is pretty much what I want as it goes up. Down here, after this turn, is where we start to get a little bit loose. However, the rest of the door, this side, perfect. Up here, perfect. Right? So the only place in this entire car that I really run into a panel gap issue is down here. You can actually even visually see it. It gets out of whack, and that's all because when I welded this on, I probably ground it back too far, which is my bad. But nonetheless, we're going to throw this in there. We're going to be able to add some metal to this side to build it out to finish this. Now again, disclaimer, there's 100 other ways to do this, but this method with the car method, or the card method, is how I check my panel gaps. As you can see, 98% of this car is gapped perfectly fine. It's the one gap that I messed with right there that we need to get fixed. So let's get to work. All right, there we go. So obviously there's a little bit more work once we get the door off to kind of clean up the backside and that sort of thing, but you can see here, perfect, all the way up. There's a little tiny bit of adjustments, but some of that's in the fender, but you can see as we get the cards in there, perfect. Whereas before it was way out. So the next question somebody's gonna ask me, well, what happens if the panel gapping is the other way around? What if this is too tight? Well, I've got a little bit of that on the other side. So let me quickly show you that. I have that issue here, but I didn't show you really that in my first walk around because you can see the way this is fit up. This fender needs a bunch of adjustment. So a lot of the adjustment is in this fender. Up top here, the fender fits really nice. There, go this side. It fits really nice up here. So it's just the bottom section here. Again, that's just in the adjustment of the fender. We'll move the fender out this way and actually line this part up. So I'm not too worried about it, but that's pretty much how you're gonna get rid of gaps that are too tight. Is you don't want to grind away at the door or the fender because you're going to end up separating the metal and make it too thin, and all of a sudden you have a metal separation issue. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this fender and adjust it this way. So you're going to hope that where your adjustment of the panel is, there's adjustment in either panel. The doors in these cars unfortunately don't have a ton of built-in adjustment. You can adjust a little bit, but again, I know it's the fender because this side of the door is perfect. It makes me very happy that I don't have to do much of door adjusting, because door adjusting can be a huge pain. You're using shims and all that kind of stuff to get it to line up right. The whole door fits real nice, just exception of this lower part of the fender, which again, because the top part lines up so nice, I know that it's all in the bottom of the fender work, so we'll deal with that when the time comes. But now I want to get to start filling in these things, so we're going to remove the fenders and we'll start working on welding those over. right, I apologize for another long work scene, but let's take a look at what I got done. I was able to get the all the holes filled from the marker lights with all metal. While I was at it, you saw me do the last remaining chunk of the wheel well I needed to replace. Got it done in all metal, so I'm pretty happy about that. There's a little bit of cleanup necessary, but overall pretty happy with it. Like I said, we got down to the other side as well. We got this one done over here. Got that one done. So everything's nice and filled in. No more marker lights. You can see here inside. I'll do a cleanup inside as well. But we got everything all cleaned up. I also went and cleaned up that little part on the door there, all around the edges, and I also cleaned underneath each door. So we're going to go ahead now and put POR on all the metal, especially inside the fender wells, in the back where the reflectors are, all that sort of stuff, because that's going to matter in the long term. Right now everything's fresh, clean metal. You want to get some sort of paint on that as soon as possible. So let's get to it. Okay, there we go. So got everything all POR'd up. Was it necessary? No. Does it make me feel good about it? Yes. It's one of those things, it just gives you that little extra layer of protection underneath what it will be the future paint to make sure that nothing, because it is sandable, that nothing is going to go wrong. I painted up pretty much everything to ensure, I mean, if I really wanted to, I guess I can go in there and clean that up, those welds, but it's kind of hard to reach in there overall. And pretty happy with this. We got all the doors done, got all the fenders done. I'm at a point now where I'm getting myself into a bit of a trouble. You know, I'm in Canada, obviously the West Coast, and my buddy who was going to paint it is down in Washington, and currently the borders are closed. We are getting closer and closer to paint, and you really can't throw a lot more on other than simple suspension stuff to get it to the body shop. Can't put windows in, any interior bits. None of that stuff can really go on this chassis until we get some paint laid down on it. And being the fact that I can't get this car across the border, I might have to look for somebody to paint this car locally. And I haven't really put any effort into it because I was really kind of hoping that the border would open up with this whole COVID thing going on and I could drop this car off at my buddy's place and he can paint it up for me. I'm not much of a body guy at all. I actually just like body work, filling, and that sort of stuff. And I want this to look really sharp, so I'm going to take it to somebody to do it right. And I was hoping it was going to be my buddy Aaron, but we'll have to take a look because we're edging up on the point where I need to get paint on this body because all we got to do is start throwing parts back on. I don't really want to put in fuel tank and all that kind of stuff until I feel like this chassis is completely taken care of as far as paint goes. So we're on that edge right now. I got to figure that out, but I'm really happy with how much we got done today. Ultimately, that kind of wraps it up for the body. The rest of the little stuff that there is to do is going to be up to the body shop, not to me. So, you know, like I said, happy with all the panel gaps. Hopefully you guys learned something there about how I fit my panel gaps and how I get everything right. Obviously, when it comes to having the car fully painted, there'll be lots of adjustment afterwards and that sort of thing, but you want it to be relatively within reason before you send it to paint. You don't want to bring it back and realize, oh, the panel gaps are ugly and everything's all screwed up, because you might have to fix it, and if it's painted already, it's nearly impossible to fix. So I just wanted to walk you through the stages that I normally do it, There's a little bit of other stuff, like I said, to this chassis, but then it is indeed ready for paint, and I gotta figure some stuff out there when it comes to that. But thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys like it. If you don't currently subscribe to the channel, highly recommend that you do. Until next Sunday, when we get to work on this, guys, take care.